honors algebra, oh, excuse me, sorry, level 2 algebra students, my mistake. I was making some videos for honors earlier today. Forgive me, guys. Anyway, we're solving equations by factoring. Yeah, this factoring stuff is really important. Obviously, I've been spending so much time going over it again and again and again during this closure, and I hope you're all staying safe. They told us to focus on essential things. Well, look at how much time we're spending on factoring. This is important stuff. All right, so normally to solve an equation, a linear equation, if you had like 3x plus 5 equals 7, you would subtract 5 from both sides, right? 3x, and we're not going to do that. That is not going to work. That's not going to help us in a factoring problem, okay? Or in most quadratics. There might be a few quadratics where it'll work, but not in a lot of them. So we need to learn a method that will work for all of them. So let's try this, okay? Instead of subtracting 5 or adding 5 or doing something like that, let's factor this. But before we do, well, okay, let's go ahead and factor it. So I'm going to list the factors of 2. I'm going to list the factors of 5. And I've got something that's not factorable on my hands. I must have written the problem down wrong. Hold on a second here. No, I'm okay. All right, I'm okay. So I should spread out those factors of 5 because they look like 15. There we go. So let's put that 5 over there. All right, I have to multiply one of the factors of 2 by one of the factors of 5, multiply their partners, and then subtract to get -9. Well, how about a 2 and a 5 to get me 10, and then a 1 times a 1 will get me 1, and if I do 1 minus 10, right, positive 1 minus 10, I should be able to factor this, okay? Now, let's set up our two quantities. We're going to have an x and a 2x, and let's see, the 2 gets multiplied by a 5. The 1x gets multiplied by a 1, and if you look, the positive is there, boom, the negative is there. Now, we're not done. No, we factored it and we did a really good job, but we have to solve it. Now, before we actually get to the solving it, I want you to tell me what 5 times 0 equals. Go ahead, shout it at your computer. Yeah, 0, of course. What is 0 times 7? 0, of course it is. Good job, Ethan. Is there any way to multiply two numbers, let's just call them x times y, have it equal 0, the product be 0? What has to be true? Well, either x equals 0 or y equals 0, right? One of them must be 0. Well, take a look at this. I have two factors, and I'll highlight them here for you. One of my factors of 2x squared minus 9x minus 5 is x minus 5. The other factor is 2x plus 1. These two factors are being multiplied together. They equal 0. If I could find out when x minus 5 equals 0, I'd know one of my solutions. If I could find out when 2x plus 1 equals 0, I'd know one of my solutions. Well, here's all we do. We take x minus 5, we set it equal to 0, and we solve it for x. One of the solutions is 5. Watch what will happen. I'm going to stick 5 in for x. We're going to have 2 times 5 squared minus 9 times 5 minus 5. Okay? This is 25 times 2 is 50, right? Minus 45 minus 5. Bingo. It equals 0, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. It's kind of crazy. All right. Now, that's not the only possible solution, though. There's another possible solution, and I find it the same way. I set the other factor, the 2x plus 1, equal to 0. So let me go 2x plus 1 equal to 0. I'll solve it for x using my algebra equation solving skills. And I will get negative 1. Then I'll divide by 2. So x is going to equal negative 1/2. And watch, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go 2 times negative 1/2 squared minus 9 times 1/2, and that's a negative 1/2, minus 5, right? Okay, well, 1/2 times 1/2 is a fourth, it'll be a positive. 2 times a fourth is positive 1/2. A negative times a negative is a positive, and that'll be 9/2, and then minus 5. Well, what's 1/2 plus 9/2? 10/2, or 5. 5 minus 5, ding, 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 0. My two solutions are x equals negative 1/2 or positive 5. There we go. That's how we solve by factoring. It's actually pretty simple. Go ahead, try and factor the left-hand side of this equation completely, just like you did yesterday. Factor it completely. Okay, if you factored it completely, you should have 3x times x plus 5 times x minus 5, and that, of course, equals 0. Now, how many factors do we have? Well, let's see. I have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I have 3 factors in this case. So I'll have 3 answers, 3 solutions, I should say. Why don't you see if you can pause the video and see if you can find the 3 solutions, all right? Here come my solutions. Well, 3x equals 0. If I solve that for x, I get x equals 0. There's the first solution. X plus 5 equals 0. Solving for x, I know my second solution is x is negative 5. X minus 5 equals 0. Solve it for x, I get x equals 5. And there are my 3 possibilities. I'm not going to substitute them in and check. You can do that with a calculator really quickly, but I guarantee if you put them in for x into both parts of the left-hand side, you will get 0 out. Okay, now problem number 3. There's something different here. It doesn't equal 0. This is a problem. We need this to equal 0, so I'm going to subtract 35 from both sides. Yeah, when solving an equation, a quadratic equation by factoring, you must have it equal to 0. So we have 6x squared minus x minus 35 equals 0. All right, so I'm going to list the factors of 6. List the factors of 35. Going to multiply. Let's see here. 15 and 14. There we go. There's 15. This will make 14. And I want 14 minus 15, right? So when I go to factor this, I'm going to have a 2x and a 3x. Little circle, little smile, big smile. The 3 goes to the 5. I want it to be negative. The 2 goes to the 7, and I want it to be positive. All right. Now, I've factored completely. Now I must solve. 2x minus 5 equals 0, and 3x plus 7 equals 0. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video and solve them on your own? If you've already solved them, here are my solutions. X is going to equal 5/2, or you could have 2.5, or x is going to equal negative 7/3. And there you go. All right, that's it for the video. Pretty simple stuff. Some practice on Math XL tonight. Mr. Lawrence signing off. Have a good night, everybody.